Yo, my beats, they are hard.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the BCSN Sports Wrap as we get ready to head into week number 5 of the Black College football season. My name is Brian Fulford, and joining me a little bit later will be my normal partner co-host in this on this podcast that we do, AD Drew. But first and foremost, we got a special guest joining us this week. My man Bobby Swoop from the Swoop Report, one of our BCSN podcast network shows. And Bobby, of course, covering all things Florida A&M University. And first off, let me say, Bobby, how are you, my man?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Brian?
Man,
it's good to be on your show. And I look forward to the great things that we're about to, expose to the people out there in the radio land.
And I know you are feeling very good as Florida A&M came away with. Now, we basically ran a poll because I thought last week was a great weekend in Black college football. And, of course, what ended up being, based on some of the voting that we took out there, the game from the week number 4 was FAMU versus Southern. Southern traveling into town. And I know you were very high on the Rattlers being able to dominate that game, and so I said let me call Bobby up, and that's a great way to start this show. So just in general, tell me your thoughts and your takeaways from the game. Did the game sort of go to script as you might have thought, and if not, where did it go a little different than where you may have thought?
Really, we started out like I expected us to be able to do the things we were able to do in the first quarter. We just didn't. I don't know if the coach made the adjustment or for the other team, or the other team made the adjustment, or Ryan went through a period where he kind of went like brain dead a little bit. He made some bad passes and bad mishaps. Actually, to be real, and no disrespect to Southern, but FAMU should have won that game. Just about like I predicted. They should have scored about 45 to 50 points on Southern. We had the opportunity to score a lot of points. I mean, if you go look at the stats, we clearly dominated them. They only had 250-yard total offense. They had something like 69 yards rushing and about 140-something yards passing for a total of 242, I think. But we dominated the game, but mistakes. And there was a period where we missed wide-open receivers and where we had a chance to put them away. The old adage that if you don't kill a flea with an axe, it'll come back and bug you. And that's what really made a game of it. And then when we went back to the things that we do well, and Ryan, made some decent throws down the stretch, we scored easily. And then our defense, which had been playing good all along, did what they did and stopped them at the end. And, it was really a total domination by Florida. And the score, it says otherwise. But if you really look at the stats and you watch that game, we knew we were supposed to put them away early, and we didn't do that. So it's just some of the things. And also, we beat them without our best 2 receivers. Chad didn't play, and Marcus Williams didn't play.
Right.
Chad, so – the young guys have really stepped up. We got some other good receivers. I mean, when you're talking about George Webb, Xavier, you got Manigo, and you got Andrew Davis, and those guys really stepped up. And the tight end, he's an awesome tight end kid from Garvey High School, 6'3", 3.5, about 230, 35. he catches the ball excellently, he blocks well. So, and the offensive line played a great game. So, really, we just didn't put them away. But it turned out, you expect in a rivalry, you expected they were going to fight to the end, and they did. And we came out victorious, which is always a good thing. But it showed us we have the ability to get, fall behind and stay on point, like, Willis' quote for the year is fight to the end, and that's what we did, and we came out victorious. So, I'm looking forward to the things that happen this week at Norfolk, and if we win at Norfolk, we could pretty much be on our way.
Well, let me ask, because it's interesting. First thing I want to bring up is your score. Now, you told me as far back as, we've been talking all summer and the fall heading into this game, you had been telling me that this should be a blowout. Now, it's funny, that you predicted a blowout. You foresaw a blowout. And I don't think you were being a homer. Trust me, folks, Bobby is probably one of the most astute fans and supporters of Florida A&M athletics and football that I have met. So most of the time when he makes a call, I'm just telling you, it 9 times out of 10 comes to fruition, as I have seen. But your prediction of a big score, a big blowout by FAMU, was totally countered. I guess the word would be that I want to use. It was a complete opposite of what our statistical prediction models from our friends at Versus Sports Simulator had. They actually thought that this would be a Southern win. Right, this would be a Southern win. And Southern by 5. And this was one of those games, one of those swing games for FAMU. And, of course, as I saw the season play out, I actually thought FAMU would win this game. FAMU was a 6-point home underdog, which to me, I was like, hey, go put the mortgage on this one and go on vacation, because I really thought FAMU would easily cover the 6, and if you were really inclined, put it on the money line. But so it was a little closer score, which I found kind of interesting.
Really, to be honest with you, and I'm not just saying this. Ryan Stanley threw for 355 yards.
Yes.
And let's say this. There were 2 or 3 occasions he actually missed receivers wide open. And those were scores that could have really buried Southern. And when you don't do that and you go down several times, and then we missed several field goals. We missed we got an extra point block, but fortunately the kicker picked it up and outran them to the end zone. But we missed 2 field goals. Those opportunities kind of, that kind of put you in that zone where you had them down, but every time we did something, we gave them more light. And, you would think, I could tell you this, if I was a coach at halftime, my speech if I was coaching Southern, would have been exactly to my players, hey, look at all the bad things now. We threw several interceptions. They pretty much dominated the game from statistical.
Gave up 2 safeties, right? Gave up 2 safeties in the first half. Yeah.
And yet we still in the game. So all it takes is one play, and guess what? They got one. We had a missed tackle, and the little receiver broke away and had a long run and put in position. They ended up scoring, and that kind of lifted their spirits. And they eventually took the lead off another mishap, and we came back. Brian threw an interception, bad play, which, like I said, he has spots where he go brain dead at times. And, I just thought that we stopped doing the things that he could do well, which throw the ball in the middle field. A lot of times Ryan moves his feet, he make a lot of mistakes because he won't reset. And also, he hurts the running game because he's not following through on his reads. In the RPO, he's not following through as if he's running the ball. And he has yet to really run the ball. So a lot of teams are just running straight to the running back because they feel as if he won't run. So Ryan got to play a complete game. For a 5th-year senior, he still has not played that game I'm looking for. Like I predicted, I said he could be the MEAC Player of the Year. And if things keep going this way, it's a possibility. But I would love to see him improve. And if not, he at that point, if he ever go down and don't improve, we got some capable quarterbacks behind him. So I'm just hoping for his sake that he he steps up and really plays a complete game, because we're going to need that on the road this weekend. We can't have those mishaps. You won't have the home fans behind you. So you really got to, on the road, you got to play a complete game and pay attention to details and hit them where they're weak at. And so he's got to make those plays. So that's why that game was as close as it was, because you could see at any point we could take control of that game. So I was never in fear of Southern, not at all.
Right. That moment, it felt like the momentum had completely shifted when that interception was thrown in the late in the third quarter. I mean, because I described it on the WrapUp podcast. I described it as I could hear jokingly I said I could hear the grumbles in the crowd. You were at the game when that
I was in the
happened.
crowd.
I was gonna say maybe I just felt you grumbling. What was the?
Well, no. I was a little disturbed to see that kind of thing happen. But the people around me, even when Ryan was doing some good things, they still weren't sure. And I don't think he's really won over the FAMU fans, because it's almost like they just waiting. And when he makes that mistake, it's almost like they're just saying, okay, he's back to himself again. You know, and I'm just what you go. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Finish your point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking whenever he put things together, maybe he'll get the total confidence in the fans. But I don't think they really sold on him. I don't think they really believe in him in the big games yet. Even though that was a big game, but people looking, all they got in the back head Bethune-Cookman, South Carolina State, and the Howard game, and where when they're coming down the line, we can't trust. Now he did make a play, 3 good throws,
right,
to the last winning drive. Yes,
right.
But for about a period, two periods, he went dead, and it was almost like he was non-existent. So we can't have that, throughout the year. So, I mean, for a guy who's been there, go ahead.
Yeah, so let me ask this. So, and you were going to say for a guy who, coming into the season, he was 12-16. I think we did the math. He was 12-16 career record wins and losses coming into this season. He obviously has played. I mean, at that point, that's 28 career games that he's played in this year. He's 2-1, so that kind of puts him at a mark of 14-17. He set the completion passing record, and probably more so out of longevity, and plus, he's been really fortunate to have some, or at least this past year, an offensive-minded coach. But really the longevity has helped him, and he's closing in on the other big passing record, which is the the career passing yardage mark at Florida A&M. And so you mentioned that the fan base may not have been completely sold on him overall, but would you call this Southern win right now the biggest win in his career as a quarterback at Florida A&M University?
No. I mean, the game winning on the road, even though he didn't have a great game last year against A&T, played a solid game, I would say that was the biggest game.
Okay.
And like I said, longevity has its place in terms of statistical numbers.
Sure.
If you're out there enough and you throw the ball, I mean, all the teams we had pretty much threw the ball. And a lot of that was behind the line of scrimmage completions. So I'm not sold on him being, the first quarter he went 10 for 11, and he was playing solid, throwing the ball upfield. Then he went for a period about maybe he was 2 for 11. I don't know. But he wasn't making the plays. And there were a couple of times the receiver actually flashed by themselves. I mean, literally breaking toward the end zone, and all he had to do is get the ball in their hand. Because those guys made some good catches on some, what I call, they were okay throws, but, it is what it is. Where at this stage of the game, hopefully, like I said, I hope he's really working on being what I call efficient performer, because right now I don't see that in him complete game yet. I haven't seen a complete game where he was just like, I want to see a game where he does like Patrick Bonner and go 32 for 36, no interception, getting the ball to the right guys, So I'm still waiting on that game, and he got plenty of opportunity. Hey, like I said, you got opportunity this weekend against Norfolk, and then you got the next 4 weeks to make our season. Because if we can win at Norfolk, I think we can handle Central at home for homecoming. And then we got South Carolina State on the road. He really is going to have to step up in that game. And if he does that, then I think we can handle A&T at home. I don't fear A&T. I'm watching them play tonight. I'm not impressed. And I saw them on several occasions. I'm just not impressed. It's not one of the teams that I think.
Yeah, we're recording this on a Thursday night. Obviously, North Carolina A&T is playing Delaware State right now as we're watching it, the 28-0 A&T. And I really feel like the A&T is really, when you watch what they've done from the quarterback position the last couple of years, they're definitely, Khalil Carter has not really elevated to that level yet where he's the guy that is the difference maker. I think right now all the other parts around A&T, I mean, obviously you got a solid receiving core. They found another bell cow back in Jermaine Martin. The defense is still as tough as it once was and always has been. So, I mean, you got
I'm just opposite on that.
Really?
I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed with
hold on. Before we're gonna talk about the MEAC in the conference just in a moment. So I want to sort of put a bow around the FAMU Southern game, and we talked a lot about Ryan Stanley, but I wanted to just quickly talk about some of these other parts around him, because that's what I think. I know I've heard you talk about this on the Swoop Report, and you and I have talked about this. There are a lot of nice pieces around Ryan Stanley from running backs. In that Southern game, you had Devon Kendrick, actually, Bishop Bonnet, both had a good game. Terrell Jennings out of Jacksonville. Yes, I mean, he has, like I said, he got all the parts around him. He's got to be he has to be a better steward of the ball. He has to control that ball. The ball to these weapons.
Yeah, he just got to get the ball in his hand, don't make mistakes, and he also has to run. Now, I don't care what he thinks or who he made a statement that he will run more this year. I haven't seen it yet, but I tell you this, there are opportunities for him to run and put the other team on their heels, so he needs to run. There are times that he could have made plays that he threw the ball in the dirt, and all he had to do was run. So I'm just waiting. Yeah. Like I said, we have a heck of a defense, and we tight. I mean, all the way around. It's just that's that one area that I'm still not fully sold on yet. Until he plays a complete game consistently, weeks back to back, then I'll say I'm sold on him. But he scares me to death sometimes.
And Stanley in the ballgame, 24-39 passing, 355 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Rushing, you mentioned rushing. I just have to look at the box score. He's -13. But he was the MEAC Offensive Player of the Week, and obviously so. He led the team on the game-winning drive, starting on their own 3-yard line. Hits a big 43-yard pass play to Xavier Smith. Hey, Xavier Smith, there's a guy, 9 receptions, 201 yards, and a touchdown. I thought
that was my player of the week. I mean, Ryan, if he had played the way he played in the first quarter, where he was 10 for 11 by the first quarter and a half, and he kept playing at that level, then I say yes, he deserved. But a lot of those plays were made by those receivers. He made some decent throws, but the receivers made those numbers, especially Xavier. He made those numbers because actually a good throw on that throw that led Xavier a little bit. Xavier could have went 97 yards on that last throw. He threw the ball a little short. He had to wait on the ball, and the DB was able to come and grab his legs. But, like I said,
Xavier had the amongst all HBCU receivers, he had the I printed this out. Yeah, he had the most receiving yards among all receivers at 201. And I thought he may have had, now I didn't see every play, Bobby, but I thought as Coach Simmons called it, the corner post move on the game-winning touchdown was pro level. I'm sorry. When I saw the video and the way he put that right foot in the ground, turned and cut towards the post, that was a thing of beauty. And I was very impressed.
Listen, he has that it factor, but I'll tell you, another kid that's before it's all said and done, George Webb. I mean, George has showed me some things that I'm impressed. You talking about a kid that can make moves. George can do it. Even on the punt return, he returned for about 18, 15 yards, but he showed me the ability to get away from people. Just a little more, one more block or two, and George could have been on his way. So we have those guys, right? We have them. Like I said, the whole key to FAMU, and to be honest with you, as Ryan played, that's how FAMU played. That period of time in that game where he went dead, the team went dead. When he stepped up, the defense stepped up again. So really he's the driving force behind our team. And if he's playing down, like in the Central Florida game, our team is stuck in quicksand. If he plays up and makes plays, it gives the opportunity for our defense to rest. And when our defense is well rested, our defense is fired. So it's just going to be on him. He got to make plays. Ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Down the stretch, now we stepped into the MEAC. He got to make the plays. He had preseason. He had 4 prior years to know these systems. And now it's time for him, like I said, I would love to see him go 8-0 the rest of the way, which I predicted we could go 10-1. And I still believe, after watching all the teams in our conference, I truly believe that if we played up to our capability.
I laughed when you first said that, Bobby, no lie, but after kind of watching what I've seen from the rest of the conference, I mean, it will come down to the last game of the year against Bethune as to whether they go 10-1. I'm at that point. I am now convinced that it will come down to Bethune versus FAMU for the MEAC.
And I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't think Cookman can play with us this year. Actually, last year we had a chance to really put them away, but this team is a lot better than that team last year overall. And I think really if we play at our capability, Ryan playing up the par, we'll blow them away too. I don't see anybody in our conference, and I'm not being arrogant, but I'm just saying what I've observed over the weeks. I saw something in really watching our defense, and our defense not at full force yet, but because our leading tackle from last year just getting back on the field this weekend, so we got a couple of kids that just coming back, so we're not at full force, and yet, you just got Isaiah Lamb back on the field, which when we needed to spy on the quarterback, Isaiah made plays at the end, so we're getting a full force, and, the more they play, the better I think they're going to get. And like I said, honestly, if we get through this weekend on the road, look out North Carolina Central. Because homecoming will be probably
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying we had a trial.
Homecoming for Florida A&M is North Carolina Central, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. One final thought about the FAMU Southern game, that experience, because outside of the game, I thought what also made that game spectacular was the atmosphere itself. Announced crowd.
Greatest environment you could ever be in.
Right. Announced crowd of, over 27,000, which made it the largest.
27,900 fans, the largest crowd that we've non-homecoming game we ever had at home.
And that shocked me because I was in attendance for some great days back in the Billy Joe era, and I could have sworn I'm not talking non-homecoming games, and I could have sworn we were in the 25 to 26,000 range. on some of those games.
Well, there's a Southern game, the 1999 Southern game. I thought we were right up there.
Right,
25,
right.
You said 5, Yeah, that game was and, it's a true testament to that there are rivals and teams that our fans really want to see, and that's something our president and AD need to, take notice and ride this wave and not put us in position where we're losing money. We have – go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
We have an appeal right now. We at a place now.
Sure.
If we can keep it going, now we need the AD, who to me is null and void. Get him on point. If he can get out there and take advantage of the opportunity with corporate America and the local businesses and bring in corporate dollars, and if you do those things, you can see that our alumni will step up. Everybody talks. Southern brought a lot of fans, but those were mostly Florida A&M fans. And
right.
I mean,
I heard that there were about 7,000 Southern fans is a number that I saw floating across Twitter.
Now I won't
before the game.
I won't go that far. I'm thinking, I don't think so. No, I mean, I'll say it was a good maybe 4,000 or 5,000. Yeah, Southern fan, maybe 4 or 5. Yeah. I would go that far, just offhand. But I mean,
is it when you think about crowds and black college games, a lot of, of course, the HBCU games on a week-to-week basis, usually somebody's game or maybe two games are usually one of the most attended FCS games, and I'll sometimes see that attendance mark. And I'm not talking always classics. I mean, we know that the classics are going to draw sometimes 50,000, 60,000. But I'm talking a home game, like that particular game drew 27, or I believe there was a home game, it escapes me, recently in these first couple of weeks that drew like 22,000, 23,000. Do you have to have a Southern for Florida A&M fans to sell 27,000? I mean, the week before, there were maybe 17,000 for a game against Fort Valley State. So the 10,000 difference, is that because of the visiting crowd? Is that
it's the enthusiasm about who they want to see play, the opponent? There's the whole battle of the bands. There's Southern, the jukebox, human jukebox versus the 100. Then there's the fans. They know Southern travel, and they like to come on campus and barbecue and gumbo and all those things and RVs. And they come prepared. They're football enthusiasts. But when you look at Florida A&M, we're known for travel and especially home attendance. And those teams, that recipe, the FAMU versus Southern, the FAMU versus Jackson State, the FAMU versus Alabama State, those games are those kind of appeals. Beating Fort Valley didn't do anything for me. I went to the game. It was absolutely, to me, we talk about we don't like playing that blood money game, so to speak. Well, to me, I think that's kind of contradicting, because you turn around and play Fort Valley, who's at the same disadvantage playing us, right? Half the scholarships, and we dominate them and almost embarrass them. Woody didn't take it to the extent where we probably could have scored 100 points on Fort Valley. But I didn't want to see that. I don't want to see that anymore, to be honest with you. I mean, really, I don't.
So the fact that you brought up an interesting thing right there. I didn't know whether to go to this, but I am, since you brought it up. You mentioned Southern, Jackson State, Alabama State, all SWAC teams. One of the big criticisms I hear from the Florida A&M base about being in the MEAC is that those road opponents or those opponents don't really travel well, and they aren't that appealing to the large majority of fan bases, which brings the discussion of FAMU's survival in the MEAC. Now, FAMU's been in the MEAC since 1979, if I've got the date correct. They've not been in the SWAC. I've constantly heard thoughts from people that FAMU should be in the SWAC. Just your quick thought. I mean, would a school like Florida A&M benefit from being in the SWAC? Do you think it would ever happen, say, the next 10, 15 years? Or what would happen to the MEAC, who the MEAC has lost teams over the last 5 years? They went from a conference, you had about 11 teams all of
yes.
5 years ago, and now you're down to, 9 teams?
Yes, and let's say this. I don't know if that's the answer, but I would rather see Florida A&M independent and play who they choose to.
In the FCS independent? You mean like an FCS independent?
Yes, and play. How would I say it?
That's interesting.
I would like to see them independent so they can choose and pick who they like to play. Since we're not going to a playoff, we're not even trying to get in a bowl.
Wouldn't that change things though? Let's just go with that. If FAMU became an independent, and you're obviously one of the first people I've heard mention this, and it's an interesting thought. I think FAMU as an independent, where you could play SWAC schools, MEAC schools, you could even play other FCS programs, maybe who are top-notch, ranked teams, and then FAMU would put themselves in position of be in a playoff hunt, I guess.
Well, and I mean, if you think about it, right, there are about 4 or 5 teams I would want to keep on schedule in the MEAC. Not that I don't think these other teams are good. It's just the distance and the lack of fan participation on the road. As I watched the game tonight between A&T, I mean, Delaware State is a small school, and their fan base is small. A&T don't even have a good crowd at home, right? I mean, I think it's a decent crowd.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, I would play at A&T. I would want to keep a rival with A&T, South Carolina State, Bethune-Cookman, maybe even Central, because they're in the southern area, Central. And then I would try to play out the SWAC every year, Southern, Jackson State, Alabama State. And, rotate with either Alabama A&M or Alcorn.
Would you throw in a school like Kennesaw? Would you throw in maybe a Hampton, a Tennessee State, schools that are Jacksonville State?
I wouldn't play Hampton.
Like
Hampton doesn't have any appeal in terms of travel. I would play, Kennesaw State would be ideal. You're 3.5 hours away. Everybody likes to come to Atlanta, so there's no burden in terms of traveling here. It's a short bus ride, right? And they got, programmers up and coming, and even play them in the dome. It could be a big thing, right? Kennesaw State.
I think you have touched on something that I think that sounds like a future Swoop report to throw out there. What would life be like for FAMU as an independent FC? And we're talking an independent FCS, not trying to be an independent in the FBS. We're just saying being independent in the FCS level and sort of leaving the MEAC conference, per se, in football. Almost sort of building their own brand like Notre Dame does in the FBS, possibly.
And yes, and to be honest with you, that would probably rub some people in the MEAC and commissioner the wrong way. But personally, I don't think he's fair to Florida A&M in the sense that we have one of the biggest games. The last game versus Bethune-Cookman in the Florida Classic is one of the biggest games. Have you ever noticed that we on ESPN News, not even in high def? I mean, it's not very clear. You're almost better watching it online on ESPN3 than watching it on national television. Why shouldn't that game be on NBC or that game on ESPN1, ESPN or ESPN2? I don't think
NFL Network step up. The NFL Network has stepped up recently by showing college football games. Matter of fact, they showed 2 black college football games at the start of the season in weeks 1 and 2.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. But now I want you to understand now, the other side of being an independent, you need a very astute athletic director. You need a president with a vision. I mean, you got to have these things. You got to have administrative staff that's willing to work and will work, and and that starts with your leadership, because now you got to do your marketing. You're not just getting marketing from the conference, right? So now you got to do that, right? So now you got to have the staff. Now, I wouldn't make that move until I had all those things in place, right? And that's just something that I envision that could happen in the next 5-10 years. Because, like I said, trying to lead a MEAC, there's a process, and you're going to go through a process, if you don't do things right. And so, but you got to get to build a program. We got the right coach. We got a young coach who's got longevity. We got to take care of him and his staff. That's very important, to keep our young coach happy, provide him with the things he needs to build. Because like they say, if you build it, they'll come. Trust me, we're on the verge of turning the corner. If we just support down the stretch, and I promise you, if Florida A&M can finish this year 10-1, or right there somewhere nearby, I would be disappointed 9-2, but I say 10-1. I can see some things happen because, with this crowd that we had versus Southern, we had some kids calling and commit to coming to Florida A&M. And we put our brand back out there, but we just got to have the right people to get on board. And number one, that's your president. If he's on board, then everybody else will fall in line. We really got to get him on board and see how this football program can take his student body, get donors, and bring corporate America to that campus. And so he's got to see that and run with it. I mean, I stress it out. I know they think that I'm hate, I'm mad at Florida A&M. No, I want to see Florida A&M move forward. And also, I just want to go on the record. I need our president to be more enthusiastic when he go out and say the WrapUp charge. When you got 28,900 people, you got to know the WrapUp charge, and you got to say it like you mean it. It can't be I'm just trying to hurry him get through it because I'm not really sure. And I'm going to tell him right now, and if he's listening out there, it says when the dark clouds gather over the right, when the thunder and lightning pierce the sky, and faith is but a glimpse in the eye of a fallen rapper. Hope, a long-lost friend. And when the sinews of the chest grow weary from those hard-charging linebackers, and the legs grow tired from this hard-charging running back, and your right hand forget its cunning, and the tongue cling to the roofs of their mouth, as we always remember, those rappers will strike, and strike again. It's not that hard. Sit down, take time to be enthusiastic, lead that crowd. That he sets the tone for everything. Because there were periods where the crowd was not up. He has to set that. Dr. Humphrey had a way of getting the crowd involved before the game got started. So I need to see that happen.
Bobby Swope here with the Swope Report. Always, and you can look for the Swope Report on Facebook, and you'll see not only where we and actually you can also find the previous shows from earlier in the year on mybcsn.net. And I know every now and then Bobby will be posting, and often as he does, and whether it be a video or a message post. So that's where you can find all things Florida A&M University. It is not an official FAMU site, so you won't get the corporate messages. You will get the messages from someone who is involved, who is an alumni, who's a supporter of the university. And I'm not going to – we got a few more minutes, Bobby, and I know I wanted to get into a couple other things here. I wanted to talk about the conference, and then I wanted to quickly talk about this matchup between FAMU and Norfolk State, which is one of our 7 spotlight games for this upcoming weekend. But let's go into the conference and look at the conference, which everyone we had a team or two that started conference play last week, but pretty much it kicks off this weekend for just about everybody. But when I look at the standings right now, I see really only 4 teams sitting at 2-1. I mean, you got North Carolina A&T, who will probably move to 3-1 after this win against Delaware State. But then you got South Carolina State, Bethune-Cookman, and now Florida A&M, all at 2-1. Morgan State winless at 0-3, and then Howard, Norfolk State, North Carolina Central, and Del State all at 1-3, or about to move to 1-3 as it goes. So, you know, I think it's a 4-team race. Would it be fair to put this conference into sort of a 4-team race between South Carolina State, A&T, Bethune-Cookman, and FAMU? Or would you put somebody else in the mix?
Well, you know, I'm not sure about Norfolk because they actually played a tough game against the ODU. Just my knowing now, watching a little bit of the game, ODU is not the same team they've been in the last few years, but Norfolk gave them a hard time. They got blown out by Coastal Carolina, which is 1A. They got blown out by Montana State, which is 1 FCS. So I'm not sure about them just yet. This weekend will give me a better feel for them because they played Division II. So they won the game against Virginia State, in which they won 42-21 or something. But I'm waiting to see. That's a team that can be a little, you know, scary. I think if we play up to our capability, we should win. And if so, then yes, you made a valid point that it will be those 4 teams, you know. And honestly, because and, you know, then again, you don't really know about Morton because everybody in Morton has played so far has been FCS. I mean, not FCS, has been FBS. So right. We're not just sure about them just yet. But I'm leaning toward what you stated. Yes, those 4 teams, that race comes down to those 4 teams. And the team that, you know, to me, I've seen that's probably the most solid team is South Carolina State.
I was going to go to that. I was going to go to that and ask you your thoughts on South Carolina. That's a team that I hate to use the word scares me, and I'm putting on my FAMU hat as an alum and a fan. That's the team that scares me with your 10-1 prediction because I feel like this year FAMU has to travel to Orangeburg, and I feel like that's always been sort of a bad place for good FAMU teams to go and play.
Well, let's say this. To be honest with you, I've seen them play on several games. I went on purpose. I'm not afraid of them. It's just, Ryan Stanley will, like I say, will be the key. If he's in the game and he's playing at a level that we expect and get the ball to our guys, I don't fear them. I don't think they're that great. I just think they're a solid team where they play solid defense. They're not great, but they play solid. And on offense, they're about average, right? They're not a great passing team. They're not a great running team, but they do enough things well enough to give you problems if you're not disciplined. So, I mean, they are that team, though, because of the size, you know, they usually play solid. They're usually solid in the trenches, and that's most of the time, be solid in the trenches, you give yourself a chance to win.
One other quick thought on the conference. What are your thoughts about Howard? Howard is a team that came in with pretty much every skill position was a first team or some level All-American between the quarterback, running back, wide receivers, the tight end. But they get off to a 1-3 start. I mean, and defensively, I mean, maybe they figured it out because they started at a really bad spot in the first.
No, they just what they really bad on defense. I watched them against Delaware State. Like tonight, Delaware State can't score, and Delaware State scored on Howard. And Delaware State really, to me, they don't have anything this year. And I watched Howard. You can almost say, I don't know if it was the coaching, but they're not a very good team. You still got a few weapons with Cam Newton's brother being able to run the ball, Kalen being able to put up some numbers, and you got those receivers Well, the one receiver I haven't seen play yet.
Jaquez Ezzard. Yeah, I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him. I don't know.
I don't know if it was an academic issue or injury, but I haven't seen him in one game. And I don't know if he hurt or if it's academic reason he's out, but I haven't seen him yet to play. So that's a big piece on their offense, but their defense is horrible. I mean, I didn't see it, and that's now I know why Maryland, not saying Maryland wasn't decent, how they scored the kind of points they did at ease because, I'm just,
I'm still a little sore about that. I'm shocked. I unfortunately made some strong predictions of not just an upset or a cover, but and then just to be
no, they did. And then you got to understand they lost a very good coach.
They did.
I mean,
yes. And I'm not saying anything negative about Ron Prince, but he, I'm just surprised that offensively and I don't know, maybe it's because of the defense, but offensively I expected more, and all he's done has been an offensive either coordinator or offensive line coach, and that side of the ball hasn't been that much better than the defense, to be honest.
No, I mean, honestly, against Delaware State, I think they had scored 24 points. I mean, they left, I don't know how many times they were down there. They left points on the board so many times. They looked out of sync. I don't know what it was, but they didn't look in sync. It didn't look like they had a well-put-together game plan. That's what I saw, and it was like kind of they were ad hoc. They were just running, plays, so to speak. I don't think any – and I think with Israel out, they just not that team, you know what I'm saying? So I don't see them being – we'll find out this weekend. I mean, you got Bethune-Cookman in their house. So.
Yeah, let's lead into that game for a second. That's one of our spotlight games, Bethune versus Howard. Bless you. Bethune versus Howard. Obviously, Bethune's 2-1, Howard's 1-3. Last year, this was a pretty exciting game at the Circle City Classic last year. I believe it was like a 42-35 ball game. We had each team scored 28 points in the first half. It was an exciting ball game, probably one of the top 20 games of the year.
Last year, if I had been the president at Bethune-Cookman, I would have fired my head coach.
Wow. Okay.
I would have fired him because there was no way Caitlin Newton should have got another opportunity. He went for it, and he had the lead. All he had to do was punt the ball and pin them down. They had a good punt or two last year. They could have pinned them down on the other end of the field and make them drive the distance. He went for it on his own 42-yard line and gave them first down. So he basically gave that game to them at the end. So that kind of decision would have caused me to make a move in terms of coaching.
Well, I don't think I don't know what I haven't taken a look at what the line or our versus spread is, but I have a feeling Bethune will be a heavy favorite in this game, and I'd be shocked to see Howard come away with a win this particular week from that.
Well, it's not I want you to say it's not far-fetched. Now, what I haven't seen from Bethune-Cookman, which I saw in the first game, actually Jackson State could have put them away with the pass. Jackson State kind of stopped doing what they were doing. And then they made a bunch of mistakes and let Bethune-Cookman back in the game. But if you remember, Bethune-Cookman offense didn't score that much. Two of those touchdowns came off.
Oh, yeah, it was a little slow. It was definitely slow in the first half for Bethune's offense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the quarterback is back to normal because, when you get those kind of injuries, it takes a while. And they struggled. The offense struggled last week with Mississippi Valley. Only scored, 20, 22 points.
Right.
Delaware State just had a man beat and dropped the ball. But, when I say that, when you look at it, this is not one – I won't say Cookman, they got some athletes. Let's say this. They got Marcus Riley transfer from Cookman. They got some guys back. They still have Robertson. But I just haven't seen that explosiveness from their offense. They solid on defense, but a little weak at the corners. That's where I think their greatest weakness is at corner. And maybe if Kalen and them pass the ball, they can cause Cooking some problems. So this is going to be an interesting game. I want to see it, to see just where they are. Because, that, to me, that's a toss-up being that it's at Howard. And, sometimes, within the conference, people get excited about playing certain teams. You best believe fam going to get their best from everybody this year.
Right. That's a 1 p.m. kickoff in D.C. Of course, another MEAC game, you got Morgan State versus North Carolina Central. That's in Baltimore, Maryland at 6 p.m. If I'm not mistaken, and we'll find this out later, I believe now my man A.D. Drew, he's actually going to be at the Howard Bethune game, and then because he is up in the area, so he will be at that game. And then later in the evening, he will be down in Baltimore for the Morgan State North Carolina Central. So he'll be putting in, and there's a third game, call him crazy, but he will be also in the middle of all that, traveling to Bowie, Maryland, as Bowie State hosts St. Augustine. So AD will be covering 3 games in one day on Saturday, and, that should be pretty interesting. I encourage anyone out there to follow him at BCSN Drew, DREW, on Twitter. And that's, again, he will be at all 3 of those locations. North Carolina Central just got their first win. Morgan State still winless. And then, of course, 4 p.m. Eastern time, Norfolk State, Florida A&M traveling to Norfolk, taking on Norfolk State at 4. That's a game. Last year, Florida A&M won. This year, though, I think Jawan Carter, the quarterback from Norfolk State, is actually having a pretty good season, if I'm not mistaken. Last week, I wrote this down here. Yeah, last week against
about 200 yards.
Yeah, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, and also running the ball. A young man by the name of Kevin Johnson had 112 yards on only 8 attempts. Of course,
but he had an 84-yard run.
Yeah,
he had
an 84-yard run.
Small kid, slim to small kid, fast track guy. He broke a run. Let's say this: Montana State don't have a great defense. I saw them; they're not very athletic on defense. So there were opportunities for them to do things in that game, right? But so they weren't very athletic. They just couldn't. Norfolk couldn't stop them, but they, like I said, Montana State wasn't very, very, very good on defense, so they gave up some points. So, like I said, this kid can throw the ball, Jawan Carter, and he got a decent receiver that transferred from Coastal Carolina. It's pretty good, and they like to do a lot of underneath crossing routes to try to, get the ball underneath. But overall, I think if we play solid defense, I really look to blow them out. I could see us beating them. That could be one of them 52-14 games also.
Yeah, one of the key stats from this game to look out for, Norfolk State has given up 1,189 yards rushing in 4 games. Again, they have given up almost 1,200 yards rushing in 4 games. So what's that, about almost an average of 300 yards a game, if I'm doing quick math? And they have only gained 347 yards rushing on offense. So it might be the FAMU, the multi-back verse of that Florida A&M has on offense might be feasting. Now Norfolk State's got a pair of nice defenders back there. Nyree Quinterly for Norfolk State,
6'5".
Had about 16 tackles last week, and the other young man, Nigel Davis, had 10 tackles. So they got a couple of ball players on defense.
They're not bad on defense. Like I said, it's hard to gauge them. I have to see them a little more against us, but I think they're vulnerable to the run and it's susceptible to the pass. Because last week the guy threw I don't know how many touchdowns.
Right.
So, it's
just a couple other quick thoughts here, Bobby, before I let you go. Some of the other games that we're going to be spotlighting here. We got Winston-Salem State 1-2 taking on Virginia Union with a 2-1. Salem,
I'm going with Virginia Union.
Going with Union in that one, huh? Okay. Now, even though
Yes,
Winston-Salem
beat who?
Go ahead. Huh?
Winston-Salem beat Tuskegee, right?
Right, and lost a couple of close games in the first 2 weeks of the season.
But I've seen Virginia Union dominate Hampton and pick the transfer Francois 3 times. Which I was impressed with him that day, and I think this will be a Virginia Union win.
All right. All right, Virginia Union, that's who you got. We've also got Grambling 0-3, Grambling. I never thought you knew the first 2 games would be tough, but so far
but they're going to be 0-4.
Yeah, taking on Prairie View, who themselves, they're 1-3. They kind of gave a game away last week to Alcorn.
They gave away 2 games. I've seen them give away several games. You stop running that little fast running back and, doing the things to get the ball to him, I think Prairie View will win this weekend.
Yeah, State Fair Classic. I believe it's called the State Fair Classic in
Fair
Dallas.
Classic, yeah.
Yeah, Prairie View won that game last year after a good little string by Grambling that they had. Grambling usually has dominated. Historically, Grambling has dominated this series, and every year there's a few years where Prairie View is actually, winning this thing. Last year was one, and I think they had a period a few years back when they were a little, more competitive again. I think this was before Willie Simmons was the coach when they won that game against Grambling. So it'll be interesting what will happen if Grambling ends up being 0-4. Over at the Circle City Classic, I think you've got 2 of the better defenses. Jackson State 1-2 taking on Kentucky State 1-1.
Jackson State defense gave up 49 points against, almost 40-something points against Tennessee State in the Thurman-Cookman. I was Jackson State run away with that game, but they run away.
Historically, I think that may be more of a product of Tennessee State just being that good on offense. If you've seen Tennessee State production on offense, Tennessee State is a pretty good offensive team.
I've seen Tennessee State play 3 times now, and I'm not impressed.
Ooh, not you are.
They have some great athletes. They have the wide receiver that's pretty good. Yeah, he's made some plays himself, but the overall scheme of things, I'm not impressed with the offense.
What about what you've seen from Kentucky State? What about Kentucky State and their start?
Kentucky State. What didn't they lose last week?
Well, they lost. They lost 2 weeks ago. They lost to Tuskegee in the. But that was a game that was only 13-7. They lost to Tuskegee 13-7 late in the fourth quarter. But a game that I thought.
I don't see them having a chance against Jackson State. I picked Jackson State 40. I say Jackson State 51. Kentucky State maybe 7.
Oof! Wow. All right. That'll be interesting if that happens. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I'm not predicting a Kentucky State win, but I think it'll be a lot closer.
I don't even think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be over in the first half. Because Jackson State has done something. They finally going with one quarterback themselves, and the guy's been throwing the ball pretty good lately.
And that one quarterback is Derek Ponder, correct? At least from what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now this is it. Now you're based. You live in Atlanta. This is now. Help me understand this. The AU Center has 2 games going on, literally kicking off at the same time. Instead of doing some kind of a split, where maybe one of these games is in the daytime and one is at night, the key or probably the better of the 2 games, I think, is Savannah State who's 2-1, taking on Morehouse, who's 1-2. Morehouse's first home game of the year. There's a good alumni base of Savannah State folks in the Atlanta area. They are excited about this ball game. Do you see Savannah State getting a win in their first SIAC game?
Yes.
Well, actually, their second. I'm sorry, because they did beat Benedict last week, so it would be their second SIAC game.
Yes, I truly believe Savannah State will beat Morehouse. I'll predict 35-14.
Wow, 35-14. Now, the other game taking place in the AU Center is Albany State taking on Clark. And since Clark has, I don't think Morehouse's stadium has lights, does it, or does it?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know why these two schools didn't get together, and somebody should have moved this game to the night. I'm just saying, you could have had folks over at one game go to the next game. You could have had an all-day thing at the AU with two good games. But anyway, good luck with traffic in that area. At that time.
You know, you talking about Clark, and you know, they haven't won. Nobody's really going out to see the game but the few students who could just walk over there and see it. So
it'll be an pro Albany State crowd at that game is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate that's the way it is over there right now. And I really think, you know, now that's one area that I think those three schools, if anybody had a sense, would combine them to make one large school. They would shoot me if they ever heard me say Clark, Morehouse, and Clark, Morehouse, well, not them, but it was Morris Brown no longer exists. They tried it. They have a few students, but I would think they would be better off combining those and making one because they all seem with Morehouse might have the more students. Well, no, you can't mess with that. That's traditional. Morehouse could suck up those other guys from Clark. You know.
Well, you just gonna rile up everybody in Atlanta with that thought. I mean, there's a lot of alumni. They would stab me, but I'm just saying they putting a lot of effort into. When I say this, when they can be pooled the resources and come with a better product, because as you see, everybody is bypassing all these programs, right? Yeah.
You watch the Georgia State come about, the Kennesaw State, Shorter College, all these places are starting to bypass, you know, the AU Center. And at some point, somebody got to say, hey, let's make a smart move. Let's do, you know, we got a common goal. Let's work together. And who has a stronger foundation?
Could you create a team called the AUC, and that team be a combination of students from multiple universities? Is that even possible? I don't even know how that would work.
I don't know how that works. NCAA would go for that, but, you know. But, I mean, it's almost like, you know, Atlanta A&M. You've seen it on television before. So.
Yes.
But,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
My thought is this. If you're not going to be serious about the sport, then don't do it. Why waste your resources, right? If you're not really serious about football, and if you're going to have these kids come in to be on scholarship, give them the support they need. That's my thing.
That's true. There's a lot of people just out there playing the sport of football instead of playing football.
Yes, and I mean, if you're going to do it, then do it right, you know, and put the resources. If they realize if they build it, then they'll get more kids probably staying at home coming to school there, you know. So, but some of them, like, for whatever reason, a lot of us African Americans like to brag on this intelligence thing, or we're the elite school. But the elitism in academics is not bringing the money. If you're talking about the Harbor, who got $1 trillion endowment, yes, they don't need football. But these other historically black college universities who depend on donations from, people all abroad, then, hey, you got to generate some kind of income some other kind of way to stay afloat, because Clark seems to be struggling very bad right now. So, I'm just saying, those are some things need to be considered,
Yeah. And finally, our versus game of the week, and probably I think the story of the first quarter of the season, in my opinion, is Arkansas Pine Bluff, currently 3-1, quality wins over Alabama A&M and Tennessee State. Of course, the winning on the last play last week. They are hosting Southern. Southern, of course, 1-3, just suffered the loss to FAMU, and now Southern has to get on the road and go play, I think, a very explosive Arkansas Pine Bluff. I mean, as explosive as FAMU is offensively, I think Arkansas Pine Bluff is equally explosive. I think they've got two good running backs.
I beg to differ. No, they got a nice running back.
Two good running backs. You don't think they're running two guys, Keyshawn Williams, but of course you've got the other guy, Taylor Porter, is the first team all SWAC guy.
Yes. Now they running back, the quarterback. The problem is the left-handed quarterback they have. I watched him play last week. He's not very efficient, and they don't have a strong defense.
Okay.
And I honestly think, they're more of a running team, and that'll play in the Southern's hand. Southern's pretty stout up front, and on both sides of the ball, they big up front. If you're going to beat Southern, you're going to throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
If you can throw the ball, then you can cause them problems. But if you try to run over them, you're going to play into their hand. And their quarterback,
which one? Because they've got two of them. They're running the old school two quarterback system there.
Skelton he would have a good game at Pine Bluff because they're not very stout on defense.
Okay.
And the other quarterback can throw. It could be a shootout, but the left-handed quarterback, to me, he's not real efficient. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah,
so
I'll be honest. I don't know which one. I mean, obviously we're talking Shannon Patrick and Skylar Perry. I couldn't tell you which one is the lefty and which one is the righty. I guess I'd have to.
The lefty that I saw start against the lefty I saw start against Tennessee State, I wasn't really impressed with his. He throws the ball okay.
Is that who threw? Which one threw the pass at the end of the game?
I didn't see that one. I didn't watch all. I just scouted some of the game. And because I wanted to see, but I was impressed though by the running back.
Yeah.
I was really impressed by him.
Yeah, they got two. So I mean, what do you see this game? How do you do you think this is a game where UAPB rises up and gets that win over Southern, or you think Southern rebounds and gets the win?
I think this is going to be the week Southern know they're in dire strait right now, and I think this is the week Southern wins. I think in a close game, Southern wins 24-21.
Okay, don't back a Jaguar into a corner because they will come out. They will come out fighting.
Yeah, I think and I mean honestly, what I saw in Pine Bluff, I mean I think they're a solid team, but I don't think they just there yet because that means you have to get a good defense. They got offense, but they don't have defense. Because Tennessee State hadn't been putting up numbers like, Tennessee State, I watched them play, and their offense was very efficient. The wide receiver made some plays, but it wasn't a very efficient offense.
Right.
Yeah,
okay. So you're going with Southern 24-21. I think that's a little low.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a close game. I think this game will be in the 30s. I think it'll be in the 30s.
It's possible it could, but I still give Southern 3-point edge. But I think Southern, the reason why I choose Southern because they got more defense. When I saw Pine Bluff, I saw that would be that would be their Achilles heel, is that I don't think they're very good on defense just yet. They're a young team, and I don't think nobody expects them to do this well this early. And they are putting up some numbers, but I think watching Southern last week, Southern's pretty stout up front on defense.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Okay. Bobby, man, I appreciate you deep diving with me on all things Florida A&M, the football team, the big game against Southern, the MEAC, and our spotlight games for this weekend. Let the people know, where can they find you, either give you your props, to disagree with you, or just to find the Swoop Report. Let the people know.
Well, you can go on Facebook and look, and you'll find the Swoop Report right there, sitting there, bright and orange and green. And all you got to do is search on the Swoop Report, and it'll take you right to it. And we welcome all comments, all thoughts and points of view. So we welcome you.
And you don't have to be a Florida A&M University fan or alum to be a part of the discussion. Just a how about just a fan of Black college football, or just football in general?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Bobby. Hey, we have to do this some more, man. I appreciate it again, and I know we will have. I've given you some great ideas. We've come up with some great ideas for the next Swoop Report, and so we will make sure to pub the heck out of it when we do another one. And so we will. I'm sure you'll do something possibly before FAMU takes on Norfolk State. Again, that's a 4 p.m. Eastern kickoff for the Rattlers.
Yes.
So we're just coming off a win, and so we will look forward to that. And appreciate you taking time out this evening, man.
Yeah, I appreciate having me on.
All right. Thanks again, Bobby Swoop. We'll be back right after these words as I continue on, and I'll bring in A.D. Drew, and we'll kind of wrap up this podcast right after these words.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at mymajesties.com. That's MyMajesties.com. My Majesties, an Urban Passport member.
The Black College Sports Network is proud to partner with ComputerRatings.com. That's CompuGHTER ratings.com for the upcoming college football season. ComputerRatings.com delivers rankings, game predictions, and statistics for hundreds of professional and collegiate teams. The key feature of ComputerRatings.com is the Versus Sports Simulator, which allows users to simulate any possible matchup and view the predicted scores along with a side-by-side stats analysis. Improve your odds by signing up for a subscription. Monthly, semi-yearly, and yearly subscriptions are available. For our listeners and viewers, use the promo code BCSN19 and get 15% off of your subscription at checkout. Visit www.computerratings.com. That's CompuGHTER ratings.com.
The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character. Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music.
It's like a loop machine. Going around town, trying to get down.
Welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Brian Fulford here, and now I am joined by my normal, regularly scheduled co-host, A.D. Drew, live and on location, preparing for a big day this weekend. A.D., what's good, my man? How's hotel life treating you?
Hey, it is what it is, Brian. Great to be in a different city, seeing some different sights, and of course, you see some of the sights of some cities that you just don't, that some good, some bad, just like anywhere else you go.
My man, indeed. So in the first segment there, couple of segments on the conversation there with Bobby Swoop, Swoop Report, kind of talking a little bit about that big FAMU versus Southern game, which pretty much by all votes, AD, turned out to be our game of the weekend from the past week. Of course, we had four different games that were all well thought of, great finishes, so on and so forth. So, those were good events, good games. So for Black college football, no doubt. So let's get into. I wanted to get into. There's definitely plenty of things here that we could get into. But before we get too far down the road, and we first brought this up in our wrap-up show as the news had just come out, and of course we're speaking about the passing of Coach Anthony Edward Colvin. You got
it backwards. Edward Anthony.
Okay, I was just reading out of the BCSP page, so it was Edward Anthony Colvin. Thank you for correcting me there. Who passed away this past weekend at the age of 65. Of course, the head cross country and softball coach at Tuskegee. Of course, ADU. Having worked with Coach Colvin, good friends with him, I know obviously this is news has been probably very tough to deal with over the past week, not only for yourself, but I'm sure for a lot of people within the Tuskegee family. Coach Colvin's duties spanned 14 years in multiple sports, including cross country, men's basketball, and softball. During his 9 years as head softball coach, he had amassed 167 career wins and 3 straight SIAC softball tournament championships in 2014, 15, and 16. He joined the coaching staff at Tuskegee back in 2006 as an assistant men's basketball coach and helped lead the Golden Tigers to a tournament championship in 2010, West Division titles in 2011, 12 and 13. And in 2014, the team made a historic run in the NCAA Division II Elite Eight. Coach Colvin is a Tuscaloosa, Alabama native. He graduated from Miles College in '78 with a bachelor's degree in business administration. He remained at Miles after graduation, where he served as its assistant director of financial aid. In 1990, he began his coaching career at Miles, where through 2001, he served as head coach for basketball, cross country, softball, and track and field, a man of many hats. He would later be inducted into the College of Sports Hall of Fame. Coach Colvin also coached men's basketball as an assistant at Stillman, and that information I read is a write-up from the Black College Sports page that just was released. And AD, I'll kind of turn it over to you for a moment, and any words that you would like to share regarding Coach Colvin and just your interaction and your time spent with him. AD, are you there?
Great knowing Coach Colvin. Knew him probably for the last 15 years or so of his life. Those basketball championships that he won, I was on staff for 2 of those championships before I left the university to pursue other ventures. And the ironic thing is, this upcoming basketball season is the 10-year anniversary of that first championship that he won at Tuskegee up under head coach Leon Douglas. And some of the guys had started talking about our 10-year reunion. It's also the 40th year since Tuskegee won its 1979 championship. So we've been working with the athletic department to plan a dual celebration of the 40th and the 10-year reunion. But just from somebody who worked with him, it just won't be the same without Coach C there. He was very instrumental in that win and that tournament run that we had that particular year, making it to the first round of the tournament, playing in Arkansas, losing in the first round of the national tournament in Arkansas that particular year, and was very instrumental in the regular season titles, a couple of tournament titles that we won there, including the final, the Elite Eight, which was the furthest that any SIAC school has ever made it in the Division II basketball playoffs. So my heart goes out to his 2 sons, to all my other Tuskegee alum, to the Miles alum who were with him, Stillman, folks at Stillman, and to the softball players, especially at Tuskegee, who he was still their current coach at the time of his death, and the current cross country teams at Tuskegee, men and women. So now I could go on and on, Brian. We've got a long show to go, and I don't want to spend too much time, but funeral arrangements will be. Did you announce the funeral will be Tuesday in Birmingham, Alabama?
I was gonna go through all of that once you finish.
Yeah, well, funeral will be Tuesday in Birmingham, Alabama. Information is available on the SIAC website, thesiac.com, and also on the Golden Tiger Sports, the Tuskegee athletic website. More information will probably be coming out on other avenues, other forms of media. But yeah, that's it right now. Tough way to start the show. Last week's show I dedicated to him. Once again, I'll dedicate this show to Coach Colvin, who one of the reasons I am where I am right now.
Well said. Sounds like a man who left a great legacy, and I think that's what we as coaches we strive to do at whatever level we are at. Sorry about the beeping in the background there. Whatever level we are at, we all strive to leave a legacy and impact the lives of those around us. Those funeral arrangements, again, I'm reading this from the Tuskegee Athletics Twitter feed, which is at MyTU Athletics, and then, of course, the web pages that AD just mentioned. Tuesday, October 1st at 11 a.m., Metropolitan CME Church, which is located 1600-04 Avenue K, Inslee in Birmingham, Alabama, 35218. The burial at the Cedar Oaks Memorial Park, 1401 Mimosa Park Road in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, 35405. And the repass is at 815 19th Street, Inslee, Birmingham, Alabama, 35218. So, moving from very sad news there in Tuskegee to a very strange story that came out of St. Augustine from this past week, and that would be the dismissal of head coach Tim Chavis from St. Augustine. And all we saw initially back on, I believe it was September 23rd. This would have probably, September 23rd was what day? Let's see, that would have been Monday.
That was Monday.
Yeah, so in a tweet from @Coach Chavis, he sends a tweet that says, in all caps, "Just got fired from SAU University today at 4:09 p.m. because my AD, George Williams, athletic director, didn't want to take responsibility for him not doing his AD, but they needed a scapegoat because," and this was a Facebook post that was later removed. And so that's how we came to learn that Coach Tim Chavis had been released. And the statement from SAU said that within the Department of Athletics, goals and expectations are set for each team. This is coming from George Williams, the SAU Director of Athletics. He said athletes must meet the requirements of eligibility from the institution, the CIAA, and the NCAA to participate. Unfortunately, achieving eligibility is not always easy, and our expectations are not always met. It is times like these that we have to reevaluate and make changes that we feel are necessary. This has happened with the football program, and we feel that a change has to take place immediately. Our primary interest is always the well-being of the student. And, so Coach Chavis, who had a 10-28 mark as the Falcons head coach in 5 seasons, they were 0-3, had just lost, I believe, to I forgot who they just lost to this past week. I don't know if you're able to pull that up quickly, AB. But his best season was actually in 2017 when the Falcons tied for the best conference record in the CIAA Southern Division. And replacing Chavis now.
Virginia State, Brian. Virginia State.
Okay, that was on the tip of my tongue that I just didn't want to say it. Yeah, they had just lost to Virginia State. I think it was like 34-7 or something like that. Well, replacing Coach Chavis is they're going with the 2 coaching system. Now, if you're one of those people like I do who believe if you hear the 2 quarterback system and the old phrase that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, I don't know what you say about when you give 2 men the interim head football coaching job, which is what they've done at St. Augustine. Okisa Smith and Reginald Cooper have been named the interim head coaches of the program. And so they will be tasked, I guess, with maybe different functions and different duties as they need to oversee. What a crazy situation that is, AD. What 2 coaches? Well, you ever heard of anything like that before?
Did you read my lead-in, Brian? It seems like you just read my notes for word. I mentioned the same thing on my notes. Two coaches is just like 2 quarterbacks. You have 2, you have done. So no, not on a permanent basis. I've seen it happen during when the head coach may go down suddenly with some type of illness or a 1-game suspension or something along those lines, where you're just trying to get through 1, possibly 2 games. But for the remaining 7 games of the season, to have co-head coaches is going to be interesting. Hopefully and one of these coaches is a new coach to the staff. So you're hoping that, for the players' sake, that there's not a power struggle between these 2 coaches, because when it's all said and done, someone has to be in charge. Someone has to be held accountable, be it Coach Smith, be it Coach Cooper. It's going to be interesting to see how they're going to how they're going to handle everything, and then what's the long-term plan for St. Aug, because ultimately, if one of these two coaches is going to, if not both of them, are going to try to put themselves in a position to get the permanent job, which is what you would expect them to do, such as the situation at Jackson State last year when the interim did such a good job in the eyes of the administrators that they gave them the permanent job instead of hiring somebody from the outside. But even if you don't hire them, they're still auditioning for their next job. So it's going to be a real interesting situation.
Yeah, the only time I've heard of something like this is maybe one coach obviously is over the defense, another coach is the offensive guy, and it's sort of what is the case here. Coach Smith, Okisa Smith, he was the defensive coordinator, still is the defensive coordinator. Coach Cooper was primarily the quarterback coach / special teams assistant. Now, they still have an offensive coordinator. So, I got to believe that's how they're kind of splitting up the role. You mentioned one of the coaches had been there.
Coach Cooper was this is Coach Cooper's first year. And yeah. I believe it's Coach Smith's either second or third year with the program.
Okay, so yeah, I can kind of see how that might develop. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, right now there's a program that just needs a win. Unfortunately, though, I'm not really sure they're going to get it because they take on Bowie State this upcoming weekend in Bowie. And so that, not to give away any big leads, but you will get an opportunity to be a part of that, maybe get to see how that all looks and develops. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Don't want to give away the big lead there too soon. One other story that has sort of grabbed the headlines this past week is this came out of the Jackson Clarion Ledger, where an ex-Jackson State athlete accused the school of paying football players as well as other violations. So Emmanuel Olinga, and he's a student at Tennessee State University, essentially made these allegations on Friday of last week in a series of Twitter posts. Of course, those posts have been deleted, as they all do somehow. The Tennessean had reported that Tennessee State had asked the NCAA to investigate a possible violation of transfer guidelines. In a series of tweets, Olinga accused the university, and that university being Jackson State, of paying football players and paying teachers to give athletes passing grades. In a series of these tweets that actually went all weekend, they actually started Friday and ran through the weekend into Monday, Olinga said he had voice recordings of discussions with JSU officials about paying him and other players cash. He also listed names of JSU players who had said they were given cash and people he said took classes on behalf of players. My God, my man went scorched earth here, just burn it all down while you're out running out the door. So in that span of 72 hours, AD, Olinga, not only was he tweeting this out, but then he was tagging the NCAA in his tweets, alleging he had more evidence about misconduct, basically saying, come talk. I mean, as if the NCAA doesn't really have so much on their plate right now. I mean, talk about just adding another file onto the big pile already on their desk.
Yeah, so, Brian, that's not. I don't know what to say with that. It's like that. Not only did I sleep with your girlfriend, but I've got the sex tape to prove it. I mean, that's what this seems like he's doing right now. It's like, wow. what can you say about something like that, Brian? I mean, kiss and tell. I don't know. It's
there's clearly,
and not only that, he's throwing other people up under the bus. Also, it's one thing to say. Sure. They did this to me. They did this for me. Now you're gonna throw other people under the bus, and let's be real. Now you're messing with their livelihoods, their education, their opportunities that they have, if they still have eligibility left to do things that they need to do to put themselves in positions to set themselves up for lives as student athletes.
Right. Well, Olinga, he actually played 3 games this year for Tennessee State. Decent. I mean, not any stats that would make you go, ooh, ah. I mean, he had a total of 9 tackles over those, including 1 tackle for loss, a pass breakup. But listen to as you listen to the sort of the movement that's taken place for this young man. This young man has really been all over the college football transfer scene. Now, this is a young man. If you hear the name, obviously it sounds like someone, a young man who was born with parents from another country, and that would be he was born in I believe it's called Kinshasa or Kinshasa, which is the capital city of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and he came to America as a child. And so this young man grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, was a stellar high school football player, had a nice career, especially his senior year. He graduated in 2015. According to 247sports.com, he was recruited heavily, had multiple offers from D1 programs like University of Tennessee, East Carolina, North Carolina, Wake Forest, and even Nebraska. He eventually chose North Carolina State. Now, there is a link that it doesn't appear he even played a game with Norfolk State. A NFL DraftDiamonds.com report in a Q&A session says that Olinga wrote that he left North Carolina State after a physical altercation, or quote unquote after a physical altercation, no details given. So then Olinga landed at Campbell University, which is a private school in North Carolina, and that is in 2017. He actually played 11 games that year, had 74 tackles, 8.5 sacks. Pretty good numbers, right? Well, unfortunately, he didn't stay there because the following fall, he went and played 5 games at Northeast Mississippi Community College prior to going to Jackson State. And it's at Jackson State where I guess some of these allegations stem from. There was even a quote from Coach John Hendrick, the current coach. Of course, Hendrick was a defensive coordinator, so he would have played under him. Some pretty good praise from Hendrick. He said, quote, "What a great football player. Emmanuel is an excellent pass rusher and has a great combination of size and speed. He feels an immediate need for us on the defensive line and can't wait to see him on the football field." Well, he wasn't there for long because eventually he transferred to Tennessee State, where he played. He even played, of course, Jackson State and Tennessee State just recently played in the Southern Heritage Classic. He actually played in that game. He had 3 tackles against Jackson State in that game. So, we kind of wait to see what happens of this report. And I don't know if anything will materialize in the immediate year or two because, as I said, the NCAA has enough on its plate to deal with.
I just hate it that there's another one of our schools who's going to get investigated because they're going to have to be investigated just based on these allegations. And we know how the NCAA seems to unfairly treat our HBCUs when it comes down to punishment and fines and other things that go along with those investigations. So, and then you would have to think. I think we get a little bit. It's a little bit heavier and harsher for the HBCUs when they get fined and sanctions and scholarship reductions and et cetera, get taken away from our HBCUs. If more than nothing else, it takes them longer to recover from those sanctions than it does your traditional PWIs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good point. Good point. I can respect that. All right. Well, that's a story to just kind of tuck away in your back pocket, and we'll kind of see what happens down the road with that one. All right. So I wanted to take a moment, and obviously, before we start moving into Week 5, just kind of give some props to those guys from Week 4 who did an outstanding job. Of course, on our wrap-up show earlier in the week, we made mention of our top offensive and defensive guys. Offensively, you pointed out and you selected Ryan Stanley, FAMU's quarterback, who passed for 355 yards, which was the most passing yards among all HBCU quarterbacks for the weekend. Had 2 touchdowns, an INT in the win for FAMU. I made mention and selected Torrin Campbell from Shaw. The quarterback was 23 of 41, 316 yards, 4 touchdowns, did throw 3 interceptions in Shaw's double overtime win over Shawan, rather. And then defensively, you picked Cameron McLean of Edward Waters, had 11 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, a sack, and a quarterback hurry. I selected Solomon Muhammad, who had 18 tackles, 15 solos, 2.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. But just want to make mention of a few other 300-yard passers on the weekend from Week 4. Jalen Morton passed for 342 yards in Prairie View's loss to Alcorn. Also threw 4 touchdowns, 3 INTs. Cameron Rosendahl from Tennessee State passed for 334 yards on 27 of 42 passing, 3 touchdowns and an INT in the loss to Arkansas Pine Bluff. Charles Stafford from Clark, 306 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on 26 of 46. Clark lost that weekend. Who did Clark lose to, AD? Somebody close. Go ahead. Lane Tariq McKenzie he was 15 of 22, 304 yards, 3 touchdowns in the win for Lane over Edward Waters.
Clark lost to Central State 26-19.
Thank you. Some of the top 5 rushers from the past weekend start at the top of the list. Tim Whitfield for Langston led all rushers in net yards with 182 on 19 carries with 2 touchdowns. The most attempts on the weekend belonged to Teroris Saffold from Central State, 36 carries, 165 net yards, 2 scores. Emmanuel Wilson of Johnson C. Smith at 29 carries, 152 net yards and 2 touchdowns. Isaac Washington of Bethune-Cookman, 14 carries, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns. That probably goes down as one of the better averages per carry. He did have a long of 57 in there. Jordan Bentley of Alabama A&M, 17 carries, 137 net yards. And then also, got to give a special mention to Dewanya Tucker from Prairie View, 22 carries, 128 net yards, 2 touchdowns. Also had some good yardage on receiving yards and kickoff return yards as well. I mean, all of those guys, really with the exception of Jordan Bentley, all those guys scored 2 touchdowns or more. Doggone it, my computer, the power just went out. That's going to suck. Well, I printed some sheets off here, AD, and handwrote some stuff down.
I guess you forgot. We're recording this live.
Yeah, well, hey, look, I'm just keeping it real here. No pause. We're just going to record this live. Top receivers from the past weekend, the yardage, the young man with the most receiving yards belongs to Xavier Smith of FAMU with 201 yards receiving. He had 9 catches and a touchdown. The most catches for the weekend went to Chris Rowland from Tennessee State. He had 13 catches, 153 yards receiving and a touchdown. And we had a few guys, just a few, that caught 2 touchdowns or more. Actually, no, just 2. Nobody with more than 2. And those guys were Jadakiss Bond from Hampton. He had 8 catches for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns, the long being 53. You had Manasseh Bailey from Morgan State, 6 receptions, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. Of course, Morgan State got out to a little early lead against Army, but then they lost that game, big time, rather. And then Charles Hall,
very early.
Yes. But Charles Hall from Virginia Union had 2 touchdowns. He only had 4 catches. 2 of them were touchdowns, 114 yards, including a 74-yarder. So those were your top receivers. And then I got to make mention of we spotted out a couple of guys on the defensive side, but I got to also give a shout-out to Sterling Hammond, the defensive back from Virginia Union, had 16 tackles. 10 of them were solo. He had a tackle for loss. He forced a fumble, had an interception that he returned 40 yards, and a blocked kick. My goodness, young man was doing it all out there on the field. And then on special teams, he had a couple of guys that special teams superlatives. How about Greg Bolinas, the kicker from Albany State? He was 4 for 4 kicking field goals, 44, 40, 46, and 39 yards. That's what he did. Of course, Albany State with a big win over West Georgia. And then you had a couple of guys that clicked over the 200 all-purpose yard mark, in large part due to what they did on special teams. Jaden Revis, wide receiver from Virginia Union, actually ranks as one of the top kickoff return guys in Division II football. He had 5 kick returns in Union's game against Johnson C. Smith, 5 kick returns for 147 yards. The long was 76. He also had 2 punt returns for 37. And let's see, he also had 2 receptions for 34 yards. In total, 218 all-purpose yards in that game. And last but not least, Dedrick Parsons, running back from Howard. So, of course, we're used to him doing some work on the rushing end, but he did everything for Howard in that win over Delaware State. He had 4 punt returns for 82 yards, 2 kick returns for 41. He had 41 receiving yards, 37 rushing yards. In total for Parsons, 201 all-purpose yards. My man was doing work out there. So, AD, as we get ready to move into Week 5 here, in our Week 5 games, I thought I just did a rundown of the teams that are unbeaten or have 3 wins. Obviously, this is Week 4, so most schools, the FCS schools, have played 4 games. The Division II schools have only played 3. And then I made a list of teams that have either won 1 game or have won no games this far. Care to guess which list is longer?
Probably the Ofer list.
I call it the 1 and none list. Yes, that would be the longer list. There are 2 unbeatens left in black college football. Care to guess who those 2 schools are?
I give you Bowie State because I know they're undefeated and they're number 1 in my personal poll. You're going to have to help me out with number 2 there, Brian.
Number 2 would be the Livingston Blue Bears. Livingstone, 3-0 right there in the CIAA alongside Bowie State. Can you imagine? Do you believe that?
That's real interesting. That Livingstone would be the one that's undefeated at this point in time in the season, Brian. But they've kind of had a easy schedule thus far, and they'll probably be 4-0 after this weekend, considering that they play Lincoln of PA this week. Lincoln,
right?
They'll definitely be heavily favored in that game. Livingstone has already defeated Clark, Elizabeth City, and Allen. So 3-0, not the best competition that they've played. Won't get a whole lot of competition if Livingstone comes out and do what they've done these first 3 games. They should have no problem beating Lincoln. The test will be next week, October 5th, when they play Virginia Union. Then we'll find out how good that Livingstone team is.
Yeah, I will. It'll be interesting. I definitely want to start doing some digging and seeing, hey, when's the last time Livingstone was 4-0 in any season? Because that's where they appear to be headed. I mean, I don't want to, all respect to the guys from Lincoln, PA, but that's where it looks like they're heading. And then, of course, UAPB is currently sitting with a record of 3-1 after losing the first game of the season to TCU. All they've done is go out and put up numbers and win 3 games against Alabama A&M, beat Langston, 2 50-point ball games, and then what they do, they get a win on the last play of the game last week against Tennessee State. If you had to say a top scorer or a top team of the first quarter, who would you give it to?
Top team?
Would you give it to one of those 3 teams?
I don't know about top team, but definitely the most surprising team would have to be UAPB. Hands down, would have to be UAPB, because let's be real, they were picked to finish at the bottom of the SWAC East, along with it was a toss-up between them and Mississippi Valley State as far as who was going to finish at the bottom of the SWAC East. And UAPB is in a fight for the top position in the SWAC East. And let's not forget Mississippi Valley State. They are playing better than their record is, despite their 0-3 record. They have been in all 3 games that they've played this year. And, Mississippi Valley State has been normally a 2 to 3 touchdown underdog every game that they've played for the last few years. So kudos Mississippi Valley State for getting things going the right direction, but this is not horseshoes. Close does not count. They only go by W's and L's when it comes to college football.
Right. I like to use the phrase, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So, take that one with you. Feel free to use it. I don't know.
Is that a Brian Fulford original?
No, I can't claim that one. I won't claim that one. I just pass it along and, pay it forward. Now, on the other side of that list, as I like to call them, the one and none list, and there are a lot of teams, but I just went with a list of teams that at some point we probably talked about as a team that potentially can win their conference. And, by the list here, I'll just kind of go conference by conference or just run the list down. And, you tell me if there's anybody in there that you're like surprised by. Go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you what the most surprising team is before you even get started, Brian.
Okay.
That's going to be the Howard Bison.
Hey, they were top. They were top of my list. 1-3, just getting their first win last week.
Yeah, with their high-powered offense, you definitely expected more out of Howard. The surprising thing is that they're averaging less than 20 points per game. That's what's surprising about Howard this year.
Not the fact that their defense is giving up. I mean, what is the defense giving up prior to? I mean,
nobody.
9 points, but prior to that, they were averaging probably close to 40 a game.
No, nobody expected Howard to play defense, Brian. Let's be real. We've said it. Other pundits have said it. If Howard's defense shows up to play, they were a good team. What no one expected was Howard's offense to be as inept as it was the first 3 games of the season. And still, 24 points against a Delaware State is not what you expect from a Howard Bison team with the offensive weapons that they have.
Right. Yeah, well, they have definitely underwhelmed, and it'll be interesting. They got a conference win under their belt, but this week against Bethune, it'll be interesting to see what happens there, because I don't think that, even though that's a home game, I don't think that'll be a gimme for them.
I wonder if I'm going to be talking about that game a little bit later, also, Brian.
Little spoiler alert. Yeah, you see how we kind of sprinkle a little things in there to set up the big announcement, or the big story headlining this part of the podcast. The other 2 teams in the MEAC, Norfolk State's 1-3, North Carolina Central's 1-3. I don't think either of those teams we really expected a whole lot from, although I think Norfolk State could probably have been 2-2 at this point. They had a good chance to beat Old Dominion at the beginning of the season, and played a couple of tough games against Coastal Carolina, and then last week Montana. More interesting, how about the SIAC? Listen to this list of teams that are 1-2 or 0-2.
I already know one. I already know one of that's on the surprising list.
Well, look, 1-2, the list includes Morehouse, Albany State, Tuskegee, Central State, and sitting at 0-3 is Benedict. All 5 of those teams, AD, received at least a large majority or at least a first-place vote in the preseason to win the conference. Now, of course, these are all preseason. None of these were conference games that they played. But out of that list of teams, who should be the most worried about their chances to win their conference this year?
Who should be the most worried to win, and we'll just say they're half of the conference, Brian?
Well, sure. They're half of the conference to get to a championship.
To get to the championship game. I'm going to say Morehouse. We see Morehouse live in person against Edward Waters earlier this year. We had that game on the BCSN, and to be honest with you, Morehouse did not impress me in that game, despite their record and the offensive weapons that they have. So the most surprising team that out of that group is going to be the Morehouse Maroon Tigers. Probably the second one on that list is probably the way Benedict has lost is really shocking. Just turning the ball over, not being able to get things right on the special teams, that is really surprising for a team with the caliber of the Benedict Tigers. So those would be the 2 teams in the SIAC that have really shocked me. Tuskegee, their one win was a conference win. Win when it counts, but you really want to pick a team like Tuskegee really needed to pick up their win against Winston-Salem, which they dropped last week. They have West Alabama, I do believe, this weekend, which is a out of conference, but it is a region game, which goes a long way towards regional rankings, which determine A, if you get into the playoffs, and B, if you're able to get a home game, if you are getting into the playoffs. So Tuskegee really needs to pick up this win this weekend against West Alabama in Livingstone, Alabama.
Who are you least worried about? Which one of those 5 SISC teams are you least worried about? Like, hey, conference season's about to start up. They're just going to pick it up, and I expect them to do what they're supposed to do.
Probably Tuskegee.
Really?
Probably Tuskegee. Looks like they've got the quarterback situation resolved. Last game, only one quarterback played instead of 2, which is something that we said would need to be settled before going into the conference season. So that's a good thing that Tuskegee is only able to get that resolved. Central State freshman quarterback. Knew they had talent in all other positions. Looks like quarterback play is going to hurt them. Benedict, if Benedict can get the turnover problem resolved, they will once again be a player in the SIAC. Morehouse, watch out, Morehouse, because that offense is just brutal. With those running backs that they have, you get those guys out in space, and there's no telling what they can do. They could take a 5-yard gain and get into space and turn it into a 75-yard touchdown. So, and then, of course, you've got Albany State getting off to a similar start to what they did last year, but remember, they did go on a big run last year. Expect Albany State to go on a big run this year. It's still going to come down to Tuskegee and Miles in the West. It's a little bit up for grabs in the East, though, Brian.
See, I would say I'm least worried about Albany State because of all those schools who have one win, the best win belongs to Albany State last week. I mean, honestly, you look at the win for Central State, it was against Clark. Tuskegee had a good win against Kentucky State, and I guess we're still trying to buy into who Kentucky State is. Morehouse's one win was against Edward Waters, who right now they're 0-3. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm least worried about Albany State based off of who they beat, and they beat that opponent, West Georgia, on the road. In the CIAA, 1-2 records belong to Winston-Salem State, who got their first win this past week against Tuskegee, although they did lose a pair of games the first 2 weeks of the season. And then Chowan, who they lost a game at the beginning of the first week of the season, even though they were ahead in every statistical category. And then last week they lose in double overtime. That could have that was inches away from going their way. But, regardless, you are what your record says you are, and they're 1-2. Over in the FBS, back to the FBS, you got Tennessee State that's 1-3, Southern and Prairie View A&M both 1-3, and then you have Grambling winless at 0-3. Wow. Yeah, so that's the list, 1-0. So it'll be interesting. I don't know, any thoughts on the Southern Grambling Prairie View group? I mean, that's a 2-9 combined, 2-9 record combined.
I expect Southern to, of those 3 teams that you just mentioned, I expect Southern to be the one that comes out of that particular pack and get it figured out.
All right. You got a story. 3 MEAC players recently became semifinalists for an award. Tell us more about that, AD.
Three Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference players were just named semifinalists for the Campbell Trophy. Excuse me. Let me get the official title of it. The Mazda Campbell Trophy Award. The Campbell Trophy presented by Mazda. And it is an award given to seniors only who have a 3.2 GPA, obviously outstanding football ability, or a significant contributor to and have demonstrated strong leadership and citizenship. And the 3 players chosen from the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference for this particular award as a semifinalist are Florida A&M linebacker Elijah Richardson, Morgan State linebacker Ian McBorough, and Norfolk State defensive lineman Ricky Thomas Jr. And there are 185 semifinalists nationwide, and I'm going to assume that comes from all levels of college football there, Brian. 39 of those 185 are FCS players. And the significance of this award is that the person who receives a scholarship for a postgraduate scholarship. So as they pursue further education, this gives them an opportunity when that athletic money runs out to be able to continue their education. And in the 30 years since this award has been out, they've given out almost $12 million in scholarship awards, Brian.
Wow. Well, hey, congratulations to those guys. Tremendous recognition, and hopefully one of those 3 will have a chance to be a finalist. That's interesting.
And this award is given by the National Football Foundation, and the finalists will be announced on October 30th. And the final award will be given out during the annual awards banquet on December 10th. And the 12 to 14 finalists will receive $18,000 scholarship. And if you win the award, you receive a total of a $25,000 scholarship. So just being a finalist, if you can make it to the final round, is going to be a significant achievement, and the $18,000 to continue your education.
Wow. Awesome opportunity. All right, so now we move to the big announcement now, because this weekend, the one and only A.D. Drew will be on tour, as we call this, A.D.'s BCF tour of the DMV. That's my unofficial name for it.
Minus the V on this trip, Brian, because I'm not going to be touching any Virginia schools, but because of a favorable schedule in the Baltimore, D.C. area, I will be attending all 3 games in that area. I will start off with the Howard Bethune game at
right. Start with hold on a second. Let's do it game by game. So which game are you starting with first?
Howard Bethune kicks off at 1:00.
1 p.m. Green Stadium at Howard University campus.
Correct.
Now, what time do you anticipate getting to the stadium?
I will get there sometime between 11 and 12 o'clock, and we'll do a live report from outside of the stadium before I actually go into the stadium to watch the game and to see Bethune and Howard play. All
right. So how long do you plan on staying there, and then what is the next game?
Game number 2 is going to be the Bowie State and St. Augustine Falcons at Bulldog Stadium. That game will begin at 3 p.m. Eastern Time.
Now, how long of a travel is it from D.C. to Bowie, Maryland? What's the time? What's the distance and travel?
GPS says it's going to take me about an hour to get from stadium to stadium.
So what time do you plan on so you plan on leaving at halftime, is that correct?
Yeah, Bethune would have been hopefully we'll have the game in hand by that time. I'm thinking Bethune. I'm sorry. I'm getting too far ahead of myself. I'm getting to the prediction portion of the show. But that, like I said, that's the plan. If the game seems out of hand at halftime, one way or the other, then I will make the trek down to Bowie, Maryland, to watch the the Bowie State and St. Aug game.
Right. So we're talking probably an hour and a half. The first half will take before you're able to get in the car and start your trek. That'll probably put you in Maryland somewhere, I'm going to guess, somewhere in the second quarter of that the Bowie game.
Okay.
Yeah, probably, maybe.
Yes, maybe. Hopefully first quarter, but we'll play it by ear, as they say.
Yeah, that'll be ambitious if you happen to do that. Okay, and then so what time is game number 3?
Game number 3, 6 p.m. Baltimore, Maryland, Hughes Stadium. North Carolina Central Eagles take on the Morgan State Bears.
And so distance from Bowie, Maryland to the stadium in Baltimore on the campus of Morgan State, how long is that trip?
About 30.
30 minutes, okay. Yeah. So let's see, 3 p.m. kickoff. So, yeah, you may have – I don't think you're going to be able to stay for the whole end of that Bowie St. Aug game. I mean, that could be a blowout anyway. So
that game probably would definitely be a win at halftime.
Yeah, you may not have to stay too long for that one.
Yes.
All right. And then you're going to file. So you plan on being able to file a report from each game before and after your departure? Is that what I'm anticipating?
Definitely before, and we'll play the departure by ear.
Now, will these be video or text? How will these report messages come out?
Probably a combination of both tweet, text, and Facebook, and along with video.
Oh my goodness, sounds like a lot. Make sure you properly tag. Especially in your tweets, make sure to tag my BCSN1, and make sure, of course, use the hashtag MyBCSNGame from your sites. Let's see if we can get
But you know, Brian, this is one of the few areas of the country in which you can do something like this. Where if the schedule plays out favorable to you, where you can catch multiple teams in multiple stadiums on the same day. Obviously, Atlanta is easy with the two teams literally across the street from each other.
When they don't play at the same time.
When they don't both kick off at 2:00 like they do this particular weekend. You can't do it with some of the North Carolina schools. But some of the North Carolina schools are spread out a long, long way away from each other. So that just a couple of spots where you can where you can do something like this. So my schedule was favorable for me to attempt to try to do this. So we're going to try to pull this off and show the commitment of the Black College Sports Network as far as covering Black college sports and pulling something like this off. And I'm pretty sure you and Roy will be corresponding with me back and forth along with some of our other Black College Sports Network partners. Yeah,
I will. As long as you make sure to tag me and and the Twitter feed. I'll make sure to follow along just in case I happen to get occupied in other matters while you're out on the road. Okay, so that's AD's BCF. Maybe I should call it the AD's BCSN tour of the DMV, but I wanted to call it a Black College Football tour. So I don't know.
That's a lot of initials to get people confused.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's part of the tragic. That's part of not the tragedy. That's part of the, I think, uniqueness of this thing. So, what are you going to go with? Are you going to go with AD's BCF tour of the DMV, or are you going to go with the AD's BCSN tour? I don't want to say of DM because that doesn't really sound good. It's it implies something else. I would just say, so I would still call it the DMV.
The I-95 sweep.
The I-95 sweep? Okay.
Yes, sir, yes.
I-95 sweep? Yeah, maybe.
There you go. Something along those lines. We'll figure it out. Maybe somebody will come up with something catchy for us as we put it out.
Let's kind of go through. We've got our 7 spotlight games, but I'm going to make mention, just run down games that we are not going to talk about here in just a moment. One game of note that come across, Shaw taking on Edward Waters in Raleigh, North Carolina, 1 p.m. kickoff. This would be the Greg Ruffin Welcome Home Bowl, as Coach Greg Ruffin of Edward Waters returns to Shaw, where he was the head coach back when the program previously rebuilt itself back in 2001. And I think there was even a tweet by our friend Joshua Jackson, who, when this was called I think it was called once time the Willie Gary Classic or something of that nature back in 2001. That's what this was called, as Edward Waters played Shaw back in 2001. I'm not really sure who won that contest, but let's just say, that'll be an interesting matchup there. You've also got, let's see, I'm trying to avoid the ones that we're going to talk about. Clark Atlanta versus Albany State. Nope, this is a matchup of CIAA. This is one of the 2 p.m. Atlanta AU Center games that'll be taking place. Chowan traveling to McKendree in Lebanon, Illinois, 2 p.m. That'll be an interesting contest for a team that just lost a double overtime heartbreaker. You've got Allen University taking on Brevard in Columbia, South Carolina. Alcorn State versus Mississippi Valley State. Not one of our featured games, but within the state of Mississippi, this is a big game. And you just mentioned earlier, AD, that Mississippi Valley State has played well. I'm not going to say that they are the best 0-3 team in Black college football, but let's just say they are winless, but they have played well. Moving on. Let's see, a couple other games. Lane taking on Miles. That's an SIAC matchup in Fairfield, Alabama. That one should be a pretty good contest. How about Tuskegee taking on West Alabama? West Alabama, a playoff team from a year ago, and here is Tuskegee taking them on. That is in Livingston, Alabama. Tennessee State plays their first Ohio Valley Conference game. That's against Eastern Kentucky. And then, of course, later that evening, you have Virginia State taking on Johnson C. Smith at 6 p.m., same time as AD's game, featuring Morgan State in North, I was going to call them, not North, but North Carolina Central. A couple of classics to be aware of. The Upstate HBCU Classic between Benedict and Fort Valley State, Greenville, South Carolina, takes place 3 p.m. The 22nd Down East Viking Classic, that's Elizabeth City State versus Fayetteville State in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. That's a 4 p.m. game. And then also the Gulf Coast Challenge between Alabama A&M and Central State in Mobile, a 6 p.m. kickoff. All right, now it's that time of the show, the moment you've been waiting on. It's time for AD and I to tell you the top games that we're going to be covering. And, of course, we'll start right at the top of the list. AD is going to be there in D.C. 2-1 Bethune-Cookman College coming off a win last week, taking on Howard University, 1-3. Howard finally getting the win under their belt. Bethune 2-1 on the year. Both of those wins coming against SWAC, of course. Howard 1-3, 3 losses, all by an average over 20-plus points a game. Interesting stat to keep an eye on. Howard has given up over 1,085 yards rushing, and Bethune has only given up 593. So a lot of opportunity for Bethune to dominate on the ground. First conference game for Bethune. Howard, of course, with one under their belt. Howard won this game 41-35 last year, AD. Since you'll be there, how do you expect this game to flow?
It's going to be interesting. You know, outside of Morgan State, Howard has the worst defense in the MEAC, Brian, at 45.8 points per game. And that stat that you gave up, their defense is allowing 458 yards of total offense per game.
My goodness.
Including 250 yards on the ground. Bethune comes in averaging 158.3 yards per game rushing for number 2 in the MEAC. In order for Howard to win, they will have to force Akevius Williams to pass the ball for Bethune, because Williams is averaging less than 90 yards per game in the air for the Wildcats. By far the worst in the MEAC among the starters, passing at only an 85.7% efficiency rating. Hopefully, Caleb Newton has found his rhythm, and maybe Derek Parsons can get going and continue his all-purpose game. The matchup to watch, Brian, is going to be Kyle Anthony against that Bethune secondary, arguably one of the best in the conference. Unfortunately, I don't think the Wildcats unfortunately, I think the Wildcats will play keep away from the Bison and force them to pass the ball in desperation. Newton will throw an untimely pick, and it will probably be a pick six that the Wildcats will take to the house, as I expect them to take this victory to the house, Brian.
Yeah, I look for the Wildcats to win this game by at least 2 touchdowns. I don't think it'll be a close ball game, especially if Bethune's defense plays at the level that they are capable of playing. So I'm going Bethune on the road with a big win. Let's move over to a matchup in the CIAA. Winston-Salem State, 1-2. Virginia Union, 2-1. 2 teams coming off of wins. Virginia Union gave up 45 yards passing last week and 187 yards rushing. Winston-Salem State gave up only 82 yards rushing last week, 131 passing. Both teams in the ballpark are 45% on third down. Virginia Union hasn't gotten a lot out of Tobias Taylor the last couple weeks, but while that's happened, they have been able to get some solid production from their quarterback, Khalid Morris, who actually, Khalid Morris, by completion percentage and efficiency, I believe is one of the top quarterbacks in Division II. I'm gonna go with the home team, Virginia Union, in this one. I'm gonna go Virginia Union by maybe a touchdown. How do you see this one?
Tobias Taylor, one of the best backs in black college football, especially on the Division II level. They're getting into conference play where he's a lot more comfortable. I expect him to rebound and to lead this Virginia Union team. Expect $150 out of Tobias on Saturday, Brian.
Ooh, okay, $150 from Tobias. Nice. Let's move over to Dallas, Texas, where Grambling, winless at 0-3, takes on Prairie View, 1-3. Gave a game away last week. Maybe they've given away a couple this year, but last week lost a tough game to Alcorn State, a shootout. Now they're in the State Fair Classic, a game that I believe last year Prairie View won last year and kind of ended a nice little run that Grambling had going. Let's see. What does it say? Prairie View battled back from a 17-0 start to take defending conference champs to a 4-point loss. I don't know if that made sense. I may have to talk to the stat guy with that. Grambling's offense really hasn't taken off yet. I think they put up 425 yards of total offense and only gave up 77 yards rushing. And I believe this is from last week, but that was by far a lot of production compared to the previous 2 weeks. Where do you see, before I give my prediction, how do you see this one? AD, Grambling and Prairie View A&M.
Thus far in the season, it seems that just by the way they're playing, Prairie View has played a little bit better than Grambling has this year. Prairie View's been in a lot of ball games, losing that close game last week to Alcorn. I think Prairie View gets over the hump in this particular game, Brian, and they're gonna be victorious, as Grambling will go 0-4, and they will be looking for other, more of the blame game in Grambling, Louisiana.
Yeah, that's we mentioned, who was it we were talking about the last time they went 4-0? Livingstone. Well, when was the last time Grambling went 0-4 to start the year? That'll be an interesting stat to go look up for someone. I'm going to go with Prairie View A&M. I'm sticking with my conference favorite. I just didn't think it would be at the expense of Grambling going 0-4. Remember, Grambling is the only SWAC school playing every team in the SWAC this year. So remember that. The only team playing all 9 opponents. Moving to Indianapolis, Indiana, the site of the 36th Circle City Classic between Jackson State, who's 1-2, finally got a win 2 weeks ago against Tennessee State in the Southern Heritage Classic, against Kentucky State, also coming off a bye. They are 1-1, a great win against Robert Morris. Then last week they lose to conference opponent Tuskegee, and now they take on Jackson State. Jackson State has just lost my notes. Jackson State has accumulated 803 yards in their last 3 games, but they've also given up 754. So they rack up a lot of yardage, AD, but they also give up a lot of yardage. Kentucky State has 477 yards rushing for the season, but only 104 passing. So we talk about being one-dimensional. That right there in itself sounds like Kentucky State. What are your thoughts here, AD, on Kentucky State versus Jackson State?
It's going to be real interesting. The strength of Jackson State's defense is their front 7. Obviously, if you're going to stop a team that likes to rush the ball like Kentucky State does, you're going to need your front 7, especially your 4 linemen, to really play ball. So it's going to be a real interesting battle. I think this is going to be a low scoring battle, Brian. If you had to set an over under at 45 for this game, I'm definitely would take the under on this particular game, as Kentucky State is going to look to shorten the game as much as possible by keeping the ball on the ground. So It's going to be interesting up in your hometown, Brian, up in Lucas Oil Stadium. Kentucky State doesn't have as far to travel as Jackson State, but Jackson State's defense is on paper is better. But I'm going to put a little green in my Kool-Aid this time, Brian. I think I'm going to take Kentucky State in a slight upset on this particular game.
You know what? I don't think that's a bad pick, and I'll tell you why. With the extra week, I think Kentucky State, you just mentioned the fact that their passing, has not been, or I just mentioned that their passing hasn't been that strong, and you mentioned that the strength of Jackson State's defense has been it's been that front. I think the extra week may give Kentucky State an opportunity to work on the passing game, and I think they might try to throw the ball a little more, and I think when you have and I've heard a few coaches say this, when you have a bye this early in the season, it really gives you an opportunity to sort of take a look at your first couple games. And, I mean, look, the first 2 weeks have been very good for Kentucky State. Take a look at it, and now what they can do is say, here's where we go the rest of the season. Let's do it this way. This is tough, man. I still got to go Jackson State to win, but depending on what the line is, I may go Kentucky State to cover. I'm not going to lie, especially if this will be within I'm going to make a bold prediction. This will be between a 3 and 6 point ball game. I'm saying it right there. I don't know if that's bold or not, but that's what I feel.
I actually agree with you on that one, Brian. I think it will come down to it'll be less than a one possession game.
All right, moving over to Atlanta. One of the two Atlanta AU Center games at 2 p.m. How about Savannah State? 2-1, 1-0 in the SIAC, traveling to Morehouse, who's 1-2. Morehouse taking on their first or hosting their first home game of the season. Savannah State. With the new improved triple option, they've gained over 900 yards rushing. They've only given up 303 yards. That means the defense has been playing strong. They're a little suspect in the secondary. Savannah State has given up 697 yards passing. Savannah State is not going to do a lot of passing on their end, so that's to be expected. Morehouse. They have been outgained offensively, rushing and passing by their opponents in the last 3 weeks, by each of their opponents in the last 3 weeks. Morehouse actually has two quarterbacks that fit within the top 20 in Division II in passing and completion percentage. Jalen Brown sits I think number 11 with somewhere in the ballpark of a 67% completion percentages. Michael Sims, I think, is number 15 with about a 62% average. So when you have two quarterbacks that are throwing at a completion rate of 60-something%, mid-60s, that's pretty good at this level. So, I expect the two-quarterback system, but hey, AD, there's going to be a great fan base for Savannah State coming to this game. I've been told that one of the largest alumni bases for Savannah State is in Atlanta, and I was told during preseason that they will show up. I don't know what the line is on this one. I think I'm going to go with Savannah State in the road victory this week. Who do you like?
I agree with you, Brian. Savannah State is one of the few teams that has the defensive capabilities to slow down that high-powered Morehouse offense. And when you consider the fact that Savannah will play keep away, they're one of the top teams in the conference in time of possession with their triple option running game. I really think Savannah State is going to be a player. And watch out, SIAC. you may see Savannah State in the championship game in their first season of eligibility in the SIAC.
Yeah, it's they're looking like a strong contender, and I think this is one of those spotlight games for them. They've won a couple of good games the past couple of weeks, and Morehouse better be ready to come play. And
well, it seems like nobody else wants to win the East, so you might as well get Savannah their fair chance.
Well, yeah, but like you said, preseason is preseason, and now everybody has to take those warts and those ugly, they have to take that stuff into now. They got to take it into the conference play, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens here. So I'm sorry, did I miss your pick? I'm going Savannah State. Who are you going with?
Same here.
All right, both on Savannah State. Florida A&M traveling to Norfolk, Virginia, taking on the Spartans of Norfolk State. FAMU's 2-1, coming off the big win against Southern, traveling first conference game of the year for them. Norfolk State licking their wounds, coming out of the West, where they got beat up by Montana State, who's like a top 10 ranked team in FCS. Norfolk State 1-3, hosting. Get this, Norfolk State has given up. I mentioned this to Bobby as well. Norfolk State has given up nearly 1,200 yards rushing in 4 games. 1,189 is the actual number. And they have only rushed for 347 yards. So, my goodness, how do you see this one going? FAMU traveling to Norfolk State.
The one thing Norfolk has that will give them a chance in this game is their defense. Norfolk's defense is surprisingly good, comparatively speaking. The offense just has not stepped up. With the real Florida A&M Rattlers, please step up. We've seen one extreme to the other with FAMU this year, Brian. We saw what Ryan Stanley did last week, but we've also seen the Ryan Stanley against Central Florida. Yes, that was a Division I opponent, but still, you expect Ryan Stanley with his experience to play better than he did against a team like a Central Florida. I do think Ryan Stanley has another outstanding game. The Smith boys for Florida A&M will each do good. I think both Smiths will get 100 and 100 for Florida A&M University, and FAM wins this by 2 touchdowns.
Oh, 2 touchdowns by FAMU. I'm going to go maybe 3. I'm going to go maybe 3 touchdowns in this win on the road. This feels like a big breakout game offensively. And the offense, now Norfolk State has done some really good things this year. And Jawan Carter offensively has done really well. Let's just say if FAMU somehow makes a few mistakes early in the first half and allows Norfolk to stay in this ballgame, they will be in for a dogfight. But FAMU would be smart to get out to a big lead, hold that lead, and keep building going into late in the second quarter, but especially in the third quarter. Just turn it up a notch in the third quarter, and that should be where Norfolk State is in the third quarter. Turn it up to a ridiculous level and just be ready to go ball out. So that's how I see that. All right, now we move to the versus game of the week in Arkansas, at Arkansas Pine Bluff. Where the Golden Lions, it's going to be a blackout, AD, which you know what that means. I don't know. But, that means get the crowd involved, bring in everyone from Arkansas and Missouri, and what are the neighboring states of Arkansas? I can't even name them. But anybody who's around that area, come on out to the stadium. Tennessee's a border state?
Yes.
Yeah, so come one, come all. Take a look at the new kids on the block in the SWAC. Take on the legend, and we're talking Southern here, coming off a loss. Arkansas Pine Bluff look, the history between these two opponents has not been good recently. Last year, Southern beat Pine Bluff 56-24 last year. Southern has, in fact, won the last, let me see here, do the math, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've won the last 6 games. I've even got to go dig deep to see the last time that Arkansas Pine Bluff won this thing in Arkansas Pine Bluff, because the history tracker only gives me up to 2010, and the 2 wins by UAPB were both in Baton Rouge. So they have not had a lot of success in at Arkansas Pine Bluff's stadium. What are your thoughts on this game, AD? Before I give the versus stats, what do you see from this game? While I pull up those stats, I should say.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I did say Southern was going to be one of those teams that came out to pack of those teams that were not doing so good in the SWAC West, correct?
I believe you did say that, yes.
But for some reason, this Arkansas Pine Bluff team, especially on the offensive end, has really shown me something, Brian, that this team can put up points and score with anybody. The SWAC is a wide open league. So they've built their offense to play good in the SWAC and to dominate in the SWAC. Pine Bluff, surprise team of the year, Brian, hands down. I think they're going to make themselves a real player in the SWAC. This crossover matchup between Southern and Pine Bluff, I'm leaning towards the Golden Lions in this game, especially at home, Brian. Especially at home. The jukebox will get going, but they will unplug it after halftime.
Ooh, wow. Okay, so the Versus Sports Simulator, and those, if you want to look at this, go to computerratings.com. That's COMPUGHTER, ratings.com. That's where you'll find the Versus Sports Simulator. Of course, if you want to sign up for a subscription, take advantage of this powerful tool that is hitting winners at a rate of over 75% historically. Over 75%, I tell you. That is better than, a lot of people out there. Let me just say that. The Versus Sports Simulator at a rate of 75% is picking winners. It's a powerful tool. Use our code BCSN19, save 15% off, and beat your friends, beat the book, and just be better.
Beat us.
That's all.
Beat us.
You might beat us. You might. The way I've been picking, you'll definitely beat me. It won't be hard. So in terms of ratings, they have a stat called FCS Prestige. Of course, 3-star good is Southern, 1-star poor is Arkansas Pine Bluff. How about the power rating? The power rating is a 76, which is a C grade for Southern, and a 70, which is a D-plus grade for Pine UAPB. Overall rankings, get this, 79 for UAPB and 72 for Southern. So somehow offensively, though, the initial ratings for the offense, UAPB, is at a 79, Southern's at 84. So I would say UAPB has a better offense, or at least it feels like UAPB has the better offense. They've been the more productive offense, let's say that. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. Defensively is where Southern may have the advantage. Ratings is 72, and for UAPB it's 64. Overall rankings-wise, UAPB ranked higher. Neither team has played a top 25 team. I'm just kind of going through numbers and things of that nature. Points per game, UAPB averaging 37.3 points per game. Southern averaging 33.5 points against. Both teams about 29. The opponent's record for both teams is about 7-7, although Southern's is 7-8. So it's been pretty fair there. 3-game winning streak, the longest current streak for UAPB. Southern has lost 2 straight. They've lost 1. They've lost 2 games in a row this year. That sits as their longest losing streak. So that's how the ratings go. The predicted score model, what everyone was waiting to hear, predicts Southern 39, Arkansas Pine Bluff 34. Yes, 39-34, Southern win. I'm going to go opposite the computer, though, AD. I'm rolling with the Golden Lions. I'm rolling with the Golden Lions. I'm rolling with the Golden Lions. Give me a final score of 42-38, UAPB with the win, 42-38. Man, I'm exhausted, AD. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like 48-35 in that particular game, Brian.
Woo! 48-35. My goodness.
48-35.
All
yes,
right.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Before we get out of here, Brian, two last things I wanted to bring out. Thursday night game, final score: North Carolina A&T 37, Delaware State 0.
Oh, goodness.
And that was at BB&T Stadium in Greensboro. A game that was broadcast on ESPNU.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, North Carolina A&T. How about Jermaine Martin? Did you pull up his stats? Because I counted 3 touchdowns. I think he may have scored 4. He may already be in the running for one of the top performers for next week, but I know he had at least 3 touchdowns, and we'll see what happens. He may have got a 4th one there.
Yeah.
But anyway,
my top 5 going into the weekend. The Division II NAIA schools starting at number 5, West Virginia State. Number 4, Miles. Number 3, Langston. Number 2, Virginia State. And number 1, the Bowie State Bulldogs, who will get the pleasure of seeing myself at their game this particular weekend. Starting in the FCS. I also get to watch them on Saturday. Number 5, Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. Number 4, UAPB. Number 3, South Carolina State. Number 2, Alcorn State. And number 1, and they've already got their victory in the book for the week, North Carolina A&T Aggies. And one last thing that we forgot in our news and notes, Brian, the SWAC has announced the date for their 100th anniversary gala. Next year will be the 100th anniversary of the Southwest Athletic Conference, and that gala will be held on Thursday, July 16th. Guess where they're going to hold it at, though, Brian?
I hadn't heard the site, so I'm clueless. Hold on, I think the location is going to be in Birmingham, if I'm not mistaken. Is it?
Incorrect. They're going to hold it in Atlanta.
Oh, okay. So then I would guess then they're going to hold it at the College Football Hall of Fame?
College Football Hall of Fame. I would assume so, but I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in here. If you're talking about the SWAC, wouldn't it make more sense to host something like this in either New Orleans or Houston, which is kind of in the heart of the fans of this particular conference? Just my personal opinion.
I mean, that's a good idea. Good suggestion.
I understand the Black College, the College Football Hall of Fame, but just my just my personal opinion that I think it should have been hosted in one of those two cities.
Yeah,
and next,
I won't disagree with you.
Yeah. Next week we'll talk about some of the we'll go over the list of some of the players who've already committed to attending this particular gala. But I did want to put that out there to get people thinking about that. And if you get an opportunity to attend this gala or any of the events surrounding the SWAC 100th anniversary, please, make yourself available for it, as they are the second oldest football conference for historically black colleges and universities, only number 2 to the SIAC.
Oh, I will make a plan to be there to cover. We, the Black College Sports Network, will be in attendance at that event. And now I guess we can start building our list of top 100 SWAC players or SWAC football players. That'll be an interesting list for somebody to come up with. And
do we have to limit it? Do we have to limit it to football players? I think we can just go SWAC players, period, as far in any sport. Football, basketball, baseball, because SWAC has put out some athletes in all of these sports.
But this is a celebration. I thought this was. Is this just the conference, or is it for the football conference, or for football?
It's for the conference. It's for the conference itself. 100th anniversary of the conference.
Oh,
obviously, we know football is the trademark of most of our conferences. But give you one player, Cynthia Cooper.
Why stop at? Okay, so here's how we could do this. And this is, I don't know, we need to hire someone to do this project. You could have a top 100 players, SWAC players, regardless of sport or gender, okay? But then you need to have one for every sport, for football, basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball, hell, volleyball. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You got to do that, right? Don't you?
Track.
Oh, God. Good luck. Track. Yeah. All right. We just gave somebody a job, and I don't know who's going to take that. Somebody's going to run off with our idea, AD, and they're going to put out an amazing list. So we just put that out on wax. All right. We got to go, AD. We've been long. This has been a long. Thank you. Hey, first off, if you listened to the first half of our podcast with Bobby Swoop, from the Swoop Report, we want to thank Bobby for coming in, joining me, sitting in that first segment. Of course, AD and I getting a chance to chop it up. Make sure to follow AD on Twitter at BCSN Drew, and hopefully that is where he says he will be alerting us as the BCSN tour across DMV or across the DM takes place. He will let us know, as he will be in D.C., Bowie, Maryland, and then Baltimore, Maryland for 3 Black College football games. You can find me at DRB365. Of course, please follow everything we have on the Black College Sports Network, Instagram, Twitter. You can find us at MyBCSN1. Make sure to go to our website, mybcsn.net, or www.mybcsn.net. And, of course, look for us on Facebook. Use the username at MyBCSN1. And just finally, AD, you mentioned that North Carolina A&T Delaware State game as we were talking in this show. Final score, North Carolina A&T 37-0. They cover the 26.5-point spread. It goes under the total of 44.5. Jermaine Martin, 108 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns from 24, 28, 1, and 33. So another big day for Jermaine Martin, one of the top running backs in FCS football right now. That'll be it. That'll be it for this show. Appreciate our producer, Roy Evans. He worked on the notes. He worked on the editing for this. I appreciate him. We appreciate him. AD, you be safe out there on your travels. And thanks to Bobby Swoop for joining. And thank you for listening. Please tell 2 friends about this podcast. Share it with a couple people. Like it, retweet it, reshare it, and we will be most appreciated. For AD Drew, I'm Brian Fulford. Peace out.
Coach C, love you. Holla.
But my beats, they are hard.
It's like a loop machine.